So it's clients, it's partners, it's potential new clients. But for me personally, like the best stuff that happens at Cannes is the serendipitous stuff when you bump into someone or somebody like introduces you to somebody that you had no idea you needed to talk to, and then you end up forming some sort of business partnership or alliance, or like the table stakes stuff is what I just described, but the serendipitous, oh my
That's
gosh,
the best.
that's so random stuff, like that's the stuff that usually ends up moving the needle the most in my experience.
This is the Snarketing Podcast, for marketers, by marketers, talking to marketers with just a touch of snark. Now, here are your hosts, Valerie, Vespa, and Matt Wurst.
Hello and happy summer. We have arrived at the midpoint of the year, right, Valerie? It feels like summer.
It finally feels like it. Thank goodness.
And we are getting on an airplane. So we're going to be in the south of France this time next week, even sooner. This is our Cannes preview teaser edition. I am ready.
Woo!
By the way, I started packing like 2 weeks ago, just so you know. That's like a little secret.
Of course you did.
Very anxious packer because I like to squeeze everything. It's like Tetris. My luggage is like Tetris.
It really is. I don't check a bag either. That's my claim to fame.
Well, that's impressive for like 5 days. But all right, let's kick things off. Welcome to the Snarketing Podcast. I am Matt Wurst.
And I am Valerie, Vespa.
I don't know about you. This is my favorite week of the year work-wise.
It's always a good time. It really is. And it's always actually very productive.
You tack on stuff. It is, but you then tack on vacations. So you have like double bonus to look forward to.
I know. I'm not doing a full-on thing this year, unfortunately, but it is. I'm doing a couple days, and I'm excited about that.
Well, I have to come home for 2 graduations. Middle school graduation, elementary school graduation, my birthday. That week after is a big week. But let's focus on Cannes first. What's one thing that people may not know that you're excited about? Like, what are you going to do?
Oh my God, can I do a self plug? Because we just invested in a cabana in Cannes and with Cannes Festival. And,
we meaning Snarketing or your other company?
Oh, my other company.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I don't think we have the budget for that. But okay.
I know, I wish. We put out like the best work we've ever done to date, I think, in history. And so we're going to be presenting that for the first time in Cannes in this cabana. And I know, and everyone should come and visit. It's like really going to be an awesome time. I'm excited about it.
That's exciting. I can't wait to see it. I will definitely stop by. If you want me to bring any guests, I will. Listener, I think you're invited too. I mean, I just threw it out there. So you're coming with me. Yes. I'll get you a badge if you don't have
Send
one.
me a note on LinkedIn.
That is great. Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I am excited in addition to all of the stuff that we are doing work-wise with my company, and we've got new partners, and we are launching the Brand Innovators app with our community in that. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be great. But I will tell you, you know what I'm most excited about? We are going to be recording episodes of the Snarketing Podcast. Maybe one, maybe several, I'm not sure. But we are going to be guests of one of the big beach hosts. I won't spoil anything now, but podcasting is my passion. It's not my day job, but it's becoming my passion. And I think that's a great segue for this episode because we have a lot to learn still. We've made some progress, but there's also a business side of podcasting, which I think we're still learning. Certainly, right? How to monetize, how to distribute, how to build a community. And as marketers, that should be like intuitive for us, but it's not easy.
It's work.
And there are now it's big business. And the CEO of one of, if not the best company leading the way in this audio revolution is our guest today. Jordan Fox, right? He's the CEO of ARM. We're going to call it ARM. I love the acronym, so we're just going to call it ARM. But it is a media company. It is a strategic agency, and they kind of have their finger on the pulse of what is happening.
I like this guy. So I like this human a lot.
Let's learn from him. He's going to be in Cannes too, so we'll talk a little bit about Cannes with him too. But I think in general, let's just kind of get the idea of what are we doing wrong and how do we fix it? Let's make this about us. Can we do that?
I love that.
That was a pretty good intro, so I'll just say that I'm excited to listen to and learn from a real expert when it comes to this format. Let's see if you can keep up, and if not, Don't worry, I'm also a great note taker. Back to you, Val and Matt.
This is going to be a dramatic edition of the Snarketing Podcast for many reasons. But Jordan, welcome. It is wonderful to have you here. We've been talking pre-recording for several minutes, and we probably should have just hit record because all the good stuff has already been talked about. So sorry, listener. But in classic format, we will replay the spontaneity and recreate it. All right? You think we can do that?
I think so.
Yes, that always works very well.
Yes. So good thing we don't have this scripted because I've already forgotten what we talked about. But Jordan, you are, you are a very well established and credible voice in our industry. And I don't just mean that because you're involved in the podcasting space as well. But we're excited to talk to you because our careers have kind of grown in parallel. We've done similar things. I've respected you from near and afar. But you're doing something new over the last year, which I'm excited to get into. So let's, I guess, maybe just start with that. What is ARM? Do you use the acronym?
I use the acronym, yeah, ARM.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we're in an industry of acronyms, so why not? But I guess ARMS, how many push-ups does it take to run this company?
Like a moderate number of push-ups,
25.
So your arms are getting bigger. Yes.
25 is the precise number. Thank you, Valerie. That's it.
So it stands for Ad Results Media, right?
It does, yeah.
So ARM is a cooler version of that.
Cooler, more succinct.
Right. You put the marketing spin on it. So what would you say you do exactly to articulate for our listener how to best understand where you fit in this space?
Sure. We're a specialist media agency focused on audio and audio first creators. That's the easiest way to express it. So lots and lots of brands want to show up within the world of audio. Obviously, podcasting has had an enormous cultural surge in terms of relevance and aggregate listenership over the past 24 months, but also streaming music and even traditional forms of audio like radio, which are broadly perceived within the industry as melting ice cubes, but also radio is a $10 billion melting ice cube in the United States alone. So there's a lot there. And that's what we do. We help our clients show up in those spaces in a meaningful way.
So are you brokering those relationships with the iHearts and the Spotifys in that type of capacity, or thinking about the best ways to leverage the channels, the platforms, as well as the talent in both, I wouldn't call it traditional, even though I'm making air quotes, but sort of that old world and new world together?
Yeah, so all of the things that a normal media agency does, we do. So you just described part of it, which is strategy, right? And obviously getting briefed in and making sure that we're crafting a strategy from scratch for certain clients or dovetailing with their overall strategy if they have a media AOR that we're partnering with. That's part of it, and execution and media planning and buying is a huge part of what we do. We're channel agnostic. Some of our clients see better results or prefer to show up within certain subspaces within the broader realm of audio, but we do it all. And yeah, we're definitely iHeart and Spotify and Wondery, which is owned by Amazon, and Odyssey, all those names that SiriusXM, those are major counterparties of ours, and we spend tens of millions of dollars with each of them every year at a minimum. But we work with 404 different media partners last year. So we just listed 5, right? But a big part of our value add compared to a brand just going to their media AOR and saying, how do I show up in audio? They will get back a plan that has 1 or maybe 2 counterparties on it, right? They'll get and there's nothing wrong with this. We love working with Spotify. They might get an all Spotify plan or an all iHeart plan because those are really easy to do. And media AORs, while the teams are large, the number of audio specialists floating around inside large media agencies is very, very, very low, and in certain cases, 0, right? So the easiest thing to do, and I understand this from their perspective, is go to a partner and say, please make me a media plan. My client is interested in audio. What we do is not that. What we do is really zero in on the strategic and tactical needs for the client at both kind of a broad level and a campaign specific level, and then we build the right media plan. And the right media plan might be all Spotify because they're amazing partners, or it might be 50 independent shops that have the right shows or the right creators, the right talent, the right audiences at the right prices, none of which are a big one. So it really depends. And I think that's one of our superpowers is the ability to flex into extremely detailed and granular plans backed by, a decade plus of data that we've been doing this for a while, or to go really big if a client wants to go really big.
So this is media and marketing, right? It's just a new format. It's a new platform. I feel like this is the one thing that we haven't done well, Valerie. So please prepare to take notes. I'll turn on my AI note taker because we also are in this space, and I'm sort of half kidding, but we're not thinking about the right audience and where they're showing up entirely all the time, because that is now a strategic audience benefit communication approach that you've built on top of and are now leveraging in this new format. So I'm excited. All right, I'm taking notes.
And I also kind of like the fact that within the audio space, it's like you brought up radio. It's like there's a large portion of this country that, like, if you are doing more of a broad scale buy, like you must include radio as part of it, right? And like a lot
Don't
of people,
sleep on radio.
I
Don't
know,
sleep
I
on
know,
radio. It's still, listenership is
yeah,
unbelievably huge across all demographics. Pricing is very attractive at the moment.
yeah,
So if you're strategic and you go in with the right strategy and the right partners, you can have immense impact. And the other thing about both radio and like streaming audio, so like buying on the ad-supported tier of Spotify or iHeart,
Spotify, yeah.
strategies like lower CPM strategies within the realm of audio end up A, working in and of themselves, but B, also having like an ancillary lift benefit on lots of other channels. And so like, oh, this is a magical dust that I can sprinkle on top of my media plan, and now my CTV is performing 22% better. So yeah, lots of benefits beyond just like the core, like how did this channel perform, right? There are like inter-channel and kind of cross-channel benefits.
interesting. So
Okay.
let's rewind a little bit and go back to your history and how you got to become the CEO of ARM. I'm assuming that it's a lovely tenure that took you to becoming the CEO that you are now, and it's like I just want to be running this whole game instead of being kind of like a cog in the wheel. So can we talk about that, Trent?
Sure, sure. How far back should I go?
What did you do in the summers?
What did you do in the summers? There's an answer to that question. I worked as a PA on movies, like a production
Ooh,
assistant. That
Hmm.
was like the summer before college, and then summers after that, I was a script reader for New Line Cinema and October Films. $50 a script to read a script and write coverage on it. Coverage is like a little review. It's a document that assesses like scripts on a bunch of different vectors and makes a recommendation as to whether or not the studio should option the script. That's what I
all
was
right.
doing at that time.
Did you have like an in there? Like that sounds like a family supported job.
No,
Real?
no. Absolutely not. I
So
grew up
how,
in like suburban bordering on rural Maryland. My parents did not have any connections to the film industry. This is, I'll try to make this succinct lest we go down a road, but like I'm old, so there was a local paper, like a physical newspaper in my town. It was called the Columbia Flyer. And in high school, my senior year in high school, I read an article that NGM was going to produce like a big budget movie in an abandoned warehouse, like 20 minutes from my house on the outskirts of town. And I loved movies and television and popular culture, and this was like a passion for me. And I called information. I'm really dating myself here, and
Like
got the number.
411?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, you know what I mean.
Whatever the local version of it, yeah.
Well, no, I had to call like the LA version of it though.
so
To
that
get
was
the
out of
number for
state.
MGM. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I called MGM. I called like the general switchboard at MGM, and like just kept asking people about this movie until I found someone who would give me the address of the production. They were in pre-pro already, right? So there were production trailers out there, and I got the address, and I went to the pre-pro zone with like printed resumes. But I was in high school, so my resume was like a Latin award that I had received the previous year. Like, I don't know, like my calculus AP scores was insane in retrospect. It was like 5 pages of this stuff. I had no work experience, obviously. I was a teenager. But anyway, I went there and I just like met all these people in the pre-pro world and gave them all my resume. And somebody, like the second AD stands for assistant director on the movie, like took pity on me and was like, we can figure this out. And so I got a PA job that summer working on Species 2, which is kind of like a quasi
Yep.
exploitation sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
And it was like an
I remember
amazing
the original
experience.
version.
It
That's
was an amazing
amazing.
experience. I like met the director of photography on that movie was actually like a legend named Matt Leonetti who taught me a lot about whatever cinematography and lens selection and motion picture photography. And anyway, I befriended the director's assistant on that shoot, who was like another, he was like probably older than that, he was in his 20s, and he had worked at New Line Cinema and introduced me to somebody at New Line Cinema, and that's how I got the New Line gig the subsequent summer.
And this trajectory that has led you into an agency and production and content format, those hard skills were learned literally like pulling tape and running lines and having a walkie-talkie on a set of a movie 25 years ago.
That was the origin of it for sure.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
look, the PA style is still in effect. We all still wear our PA single color t-shirts to work every day 25 years
Look
later.
at us.
So look at us, right? Here we go.
I am sorry, but I really appreciate the hustle there. I'm like, can I please like send this recording to my 14-year-old son and be like, can you please, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do.
So you're, and we talked a little bit about your time at laundry service previously, which was Cycle, then laundry service. And, you know, you got Wasserman involved and big names and
A lot of
talent and
entities,
athletes.
a lot
and
of business entities.
a lot of entities, but
Mhm.
you're also learning how to work with these disparate groups. And early in your time there, I mean, you were brought in as a COO, but with departures and acquisitions, you were elevated to a role. Were you expecting that to happen? Were you excited for it? Were you kind of nervous? Like what, how did that first CEO like role, how did you react and adapt to that?
I think I was happy. Like it was one of those things, like to your point, there were a lot of changes in the organization, and then like that role opened up, and then I was asked to step into it, and I was excited, and I said yes. I think the difference between being the number two person at a company and being the person who's supposed to lead the company is like much more psychological than it is practical. A lot of like the
Yeah.
departments that reported up to me when I was running the agency already reported up to me when I was chief operating officer, right? But like I remember particularly during those first few months, you just feel like a weight that almost manifests like physically in your chest, or at least that's what it was for me. Uh, because the level of ownership and accountability and responsibility and like what you owe to your employees and your stakeholders and the board and all that stuff, like that's all a different level, and it takes a while to figure out how to kind of gracefully carry that.
So ARM's positioning is clear. It's a new kind of content and brand studio. So were you part of like designing this new positioning, and what like fundamentally does that mean for the work that you do?
Yeah, so I joined the agency a little bit over a year ago as CEO. I think the positioning in market when I came in was very performance marketing focused. And indeed, performance marketers are our single biggest client segment. And so obviously that discipline is extremely, extremely important to me, and it's central to what we do. And I think there's obviously a reason for that, which is that performance marketers were very early to digital audio and really, really aggressively participated in the space from an early point, right? Um, I come from a mixture of performance and brand background. And a kind of core thesis for me, which is borne out by conversations with CMOs and VPs of brand and the like, is that only really over the past 18 to 24 months have big brand marketers started to become focused on digital audio.
Mhm.
It's a relatively new thing. So it was really important for me to kind of broaden our positioning and not just say like all we care about is performance marketing, and instead to say like we care a lot about performance marketing, and it's a very hard sport to play in the context of audio. We play that sport very well. But also, there are all these brand marketers who view audio less as a channel set and more like as the kind of missing third of their influencer marketing plan, right? Like these are creators. Big podcasters are creators. And a lot of brands now have really robust social media influencer marketing approaches. And like in my previous role, Laundry Service and Cycle, like we helped brands show up in those spaces. And a decent number of brands also have some sort of video approach, right? Like they're doing something with
Oh,
YouTubers or on
sure.
YouTube. Maybe they're doing something on Twitch. But like very few big brands that care about showing up within culture have really deep, fully articulated audio strategies. And that is changing rapidly because the kind of position of podcasters and podcasting, both domestically and globally, honestly, it has surged immensely. Um, and so
Right.
like
You
in
think of
light of
the
that, there's this new need that needs to be filled, and I want to obviously help position our agency to serve those needs.
yeah. I mean, I think that was kind of an epiphany aha moment that came out of certainly mainstream after the election, but even beforehand, you look at whether it's Joe Rogan or the Kelsey brothers and the role that brands play and the role that media plays and ways that creative is being influenced. It's like those brand deals require both, creative soul and consulting like speed because they're posting a new episode every few days. And that balance is probably hard, but given the social nature and the background and the production experience that you have in terms of what you've built and led, right? It's a little bit of process, it's a little bit of personality. Do you find that others are now catching up and able to move at that speed, or do you still feel like you've got this kind of leadership position that you want to extend and expand and continue to innovate on?
I think we have a leadership position, particularly with regards to doing it at scale, right? So any brand can call their media agency and say, I want to show up on the Joe Rogan podcast, or I want to show up on Call Her Daddy. And like the agency can figure out how to do that. Um, because the agency probably doesn't have a deep like facility and history in this space, they'll probably overpay and there probably won't be a broader strategy. It'll probably be more tactical. And it's like, okay, let's make this happen. I think our edge is multifold. One is pricing, just because we do so much volume in this particular space with these counterparties that impacts your rate card and gives you a little bit more leverage to get attractive pricing, which benefits your clients, obviously. But it's also just the art and science of the history and how we kind of bring that to bear. So like we've been doing this for a long time. We have a lot of data on what works and doesn't work for different types of brands. That data is proprietary to us, obviously. And so when we're writing a media plan to help a brand show up in this space, we're not doing it for the first time. We're doing it for the 10,000th time. And some of that is like gut instinct and knowledge, and some of that is data. And those two things together, I think, create an edge for us against our competitors currently.
And is there a large enough technology solution or shared data suite that makes it accessible to others? Or is this where some individual organizations may have a proprietary advantage because you have that deep experience?
Yeah, I think there are pockets of data floating around, right? There are a handful of specialist audio agencies, and I think each of them have their own kind of pockets of campaign data. And I think there are different ways to leverage it with varying levels of technical sophistication, but there are pockets of data. And then there are also there's a growing ecosystem of data and attribution third-party providers in the space. So there are companies like Podscribe and Magellan AI and Arts AI, which was recently acquired by Claritas. And all of those players have their own sources of data, and then DSPs have their own sources of data. So there's lots of data floating around. It is leveraged with varying degrees of effectiveness by various parties. And I think our job as an agency isn't to like hang our hat on proprietary data. It's to possess proprietary data and leverage it when we can to our clients' advantage, but also to be able to ingest all of this data from these disparate sources and harmonize it and extract insights that are relevant to our clients from that big lumpy mess of data from 18 different counterparties.
How are you thinking about AI? How is ARM using AI today to support and obviously not replace the bold thinking that you guys are doing?
Yeah, so I think AI is not really touching our creative work in the realm of host read, right? Host read is an art of briefing, and it's an art of like working with the host and their representation
Hmm.
and providing just enough information that they can tell the brand story in a way that is satisfactory to the brand but also meaningful and authentic to them. That's just what we do on the social influencer marketing side too, right? And that's very much art and not science, frankly. And So AI is not really touching that
Mhm.
piece. I will say, like, occasionally we get a recorded host read spot back that sounds like it might be AI, and we have a little bit of a conversation with the counterparty because some hosts like go rogue and actually use like 11 Labs and clone their own voice to save time on their spots. Fascinating
Oh
stuff.
my
So like
gosh.
that's the world that we're living in. But anyway, like we're not doing AI when it comes to host read spots. We're working with real human beings and helping them tell real human stories that weave in the brand narrative. When it comes to produced spots, which we also do, so it's like if you're listening to the ad supported tier of Spotify, and then there's a 30-second spot that you listen to that's interpolated into that stream, we're absolutely producing and distributing those spots. Sometimes we produce those spots using conventional means. We cast voice talent and we do all the normal things. We edit it ourselves. And sometimes we use AI tools, obviously with the client's consent, to do that instead. And I think the considerations there range from a client's desire to experiment, cost sensitivity on the part of a client. But the single largest reason that we'll end up using AI creative for a produce spot will be time. So like we had a client sign an MSA with us a couple of months ago, and literally they wanted to be live in several different markets with several different versions of creative 72 hours later. It was a real rush. And we said to them, that is not consistent with a practical production timeline, and we won't be able to do that. If you want to do that, then we're talking about AI production. How do you feel about that? And they said, great, whatever. We just want this stuff to sound good, and we want it live in 4 markets in 72 hours. So
Hmm.
those incentives are what often push the conversation toward AI right now.
So speed versus substance is really like the line in the sand at the moment
I don't know
for
if I
AI.
would like frame it exactly
No.
that.
Okay.
I mean, like some of this stuff performs really well, and some of it is indistinguishable to the average listener in their car from a traditionally produced spot. So,
And the question is, if you
like, and
can't
what
tell, does it
constitutes,
matter? Right?
yeah, I mean, I think some people care for various reasons, and I think there are obviously like really talented script writers and voice actors who working together can probably at the top end make a better spot than AI can make currently. I think that that's true. I believe that's going to be true for a long, long time. At the high end, right? If you're really shooting for the stars creatively and you really, really want to achieve something meaningful, I think that you're going with traditional creative all the way from script to production to post-production. I think that, you know, there are lots of clients who don't want to get 11 out of 10 and try to win a Cannes Lion for their audio spot and just want it to work in market effectively and cost effectively, right? And for those, there's no tension between substance or whatever. Like for those, it's just the correct solution for that client given their needs and priorities.
And doing as much like business as you do in this space, is it still like, is the host read script more perform better than just a generally like whatever made ad? Like is
So like that is the high CPM tip of the spear stuff.
yeah,
That is the most expensive form of inventory. So like when you ask how it performs, that's a nuanced question because you have to take the price into account if you're like performance is a math problem, right?
yeah.
So like yes, it does perform even the expensive stuff when correctly deployed, but like the real optimization of performance is finding the right mix for the client between the pricey tip of the spear host red stuff and like a much more CPM effective programmatic
Broader.
strategy where you're deploying pre-recorded spots to get the reach and frequency, right? If you're really trying to buy all of your reach and frequency through the most expensive format,
Sure.
that can be a little bit tricky to execute. So it's all about finding the right balance for each client.
Makes sense.
Well, I have to take a moment to pause and allow a word from our sponsors. Several AI content detectors will claim high levels of accuracy, but only Winston AI can deliver a high quality performance ROI that your brand is looking for. Just remember, no detector is 100% accurate, so false positives can occur. All right, back to our show. How was that? Was that real? Was that AI? I don't even know. I
Excellent.
know Winston AI. I just kind of pulled that out.
Excellent.
No, so you mentioned Cannes. So this is our Cannes preview edition, only because it happens to fall on the calendar in the week that we are all headed overseas. This show has obviously evolved, and creative still is in the spotlight there. But what are your priorities, objectives, agendas? Like, are the people that you need to meet with going? Are there more of them going based on how the industry has evolved, or is it the same? Like, what's Can gonna be like for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, so like for anybody who runs an agency, you're there for a couple of different reasons. One, you probably have clients there and you want to spend time with them and go deep with them. It's a great opportunity where a lot of different senior people from all different parts of our industry are together and you want to take advantage of that. Also, a lot of our large partners are there. And again, like everybody is concentrated in one place and you can have a meeting with five people who live in five different cities in person, and there's a lot more that you can achieve, I think, through that forum of communication versus Zoom or whatever, right? So it's clients, it's partners, it's potential new clients. But for me personally, like the best stuff that happens at Can is the serendipitous stuff when you bump into someone or somebody like introduces you to somebody that you had no idea you needed to talk to, and then you end up forming some sort of business partnership or alliance, or like the table stakes stuff is what I just described, but the serendipitous, oh my
Yeah, it's the
gosh,
best.
that's so random stuff, like that's the stuff that usually ends up moving the needle the most in my experience.
All right, well, let's plan to run into each other serendipitously and maybe find ways to work together or not, but have fun doing so. Deal?
Hmm.
I love,
Okay. All right.
I love it. Speaking of award-winning work, is there anything that you've worked on as of late of being at ARM that you're particularly proud of that sort of pushes the limits as far as format or culture or collaboration?
I am really proud of a lot of the work that we have done in the past year. I don't think any of the work that we've done in the past year is necessarily going to like be competitive at Canline. We didn't submit anything this year, right? I think that a lot of performance marketers in particular have a very kind of healthily pragmatic perspective when it comes to creative. And since that's like the majority of our client base, we share that perspective for those clients. I obviously have aspirations about getting like real weird and making a splash with an ostensibly normal audio spot. And we have some really cool clients that are open to doing stuff like that, and we're having some
I
conversations,
love
but
that.
nothing to announce yet. And that's like a Can 2026 conversation, hopefully.
What is the minimum viable reach and audience that a podcast needs to have for something like that to take root? Because we'll do anything.
um that is hard because like I don't usually think about it in terms of individual shows, right? We're thinking kind of
Yeah,
about
that's no,
audience and then backing into the show oftentimes.
I,
But
I just
you
want to be
know,
listed on your award submission. That's all I was asking for. So
I'm
we'll see what we can do.
I
okay.
must say, in terms of like ads that are spoken by hosts, like Conan and Smartless, like go off on these improvs, like as part of it, and you know, obviously the brand must be accepting of that. And I will actually listen sometimes just to to hear how they riff, you know.
Yes.
So I think
We work obviously with both of them, and yeah, they're so good.
there's
Conan and his team are so like just
he just
the cream of the crop for that
I
stuff.
live in Brooklyn and I walk around listening to his podcast when I walk my dog, and people must think I'm insane because I'm just like cackling out loud. I can't even control myself.
I was listening to like the third Bill Hader appearance the other day on the subway, and I was just laughing out loud, getting funny looks from like commuters across the street from me. Like when those guys are cooking, they're unstoppable.
Unreal. Unreal.
And it
Yeah.
must be a lot of fun because you're dealing with creators, as you said, who are influencers, and some of them are exploring new formats in this way, but others, the platform may be leading them, and it's changing by the minute. What are the sort of macro or maybe micro shifts that the brands, the advertisers need to think about to stay culturally relevant? Because I'm guessing their planning cycles are not keeping up with the speed with which we are all moving things forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, so there are a bunch of different answers to that question. I think the single most potent trend in this vein is the shift of podcast consumption from pure audio consumption to YouTube, right? So like 2 years ago, 85% of podcast consumption was like pure audio on the RSS feed or through the Spotify app or the Apple Podcast app. And now that number is 31%, right?
Oh.
So, excuse me, the percentage that is on
Is that for
YouTube is
full
31%.
full
Excuse me. So
episodes
like
or just like short clips?
Full episodes on
Full
YouTube.
episodes.
So,
Okay. Okay.
so like you've gone from 15% of consumption being on YouTube to 31% over 2 years, and you can like see where that number is going. It's going to continue going up and to the right. And it's a demographic thing, right? So like all of Gen Alpha and like round numbers, call it like the bottom age half of Gen Z is principally consuming podcasts on YouTube. And of that cohort, by the way, a lot of them are not even using the word podcast in conversation to discuss what it is that they're consuming. They're just saying show. It's a show I watch on
Yeah.
YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So like a big thing in audio is that audio is not just audio anymore. And that's why I keep talking about audio first creators. It's because like you always are linked to wherever you got famous on the internet, right? Like TikTokers can get cast in a movie now and do, or TikTokers can publish cookbooks and they do. But like everyone's like, this TikToker published a cookbook. They don't just pivot and start calling that person a cookbook author. So similarly, I think like there are a lot, like the term podcaster is going to last for a while because podcasts are still a thing and a lot of people got famous on that medium. But like over time, man, like the proportion of podcast consumption that's going to be in video form on YouTube will go north of 50%. And then you get into an existential question about what podcasting is, which I don't really care about because I already think of these as like creators we partner with more than podcast
Mm.
per se. But there's certainly like a lot of hand wringing in the industry about like, ooh, like what is this? What does this mean? I don't care what it means. I just care where my audience is, and I care about reaching them in an effective way wherever they are. But anyway, that shift to YouTube is like the hot topic in audio land right now. And I think the other thing that I've observed, which is extremely healthy, is something I also observed with regard to social influencers in like the late 2010s, which was the best campaign stopped being something that only happened on the internet, right? Like in 2016, we were just trying to like get people who were famous on Instagram to post cool stuff that made people like a brand. I think by 2019, we were thinking in a different way, which is like, let's have an event or let's send a team of influencers to an event for a reason, not just for an arbitrary like photo op. And let's create something that is meaningful and experiential. And then let's create content around that and let's distribute that content. But like, let's build in meaningful elements aside from just like stuff happening in isolation on the internet. And that's happening now with podcasts too, right? You've seen like people who are successful tour their podcasts.
Hmm.
Giggly Squad, Bravo fans unite, myself included. Giggly Squad sold out like a 60 city tour, right? Hannah and Paige toured and sold out theaters all over the United States talking about the stuff that they talk about. And so for my clients, like that's all opportunity. So now when we're doing a big partnership with people in this space, we're not just thinking about showing up on the audio feed. It's like it's audio, it's the YouTube version, it's guaranteeing and baking into the deal cut downs that gets posted on TikTok and Reels that also feature our clients' branding. Sometimes it's client branding integration onto the set of the video portion of the podcast. Sometimes it's presented by sponsorship at the tour. So I think all of this stuff is going omni-channel with both social influencers and audio first influencers. And it's very important for brands to, I think, not struggle against that and to embrace that because only then can you really tap into the full power and audience loyalty of these creators.
Yeah, that becomes like a phased approach. So whether it's the video-ification
Experiential.
that's phase one of omnichannel, and then experiential is phase two, and who knows when and if the metaverse will come back around again. That's phase 3/phase 0. I don't know. But I mean, I don't think I was expecting to be as blown away and now immediately starting to think about strategies for how we should be doing this. But this has become very personal and deeply emotional and
Listen,
maybe
the single most
spiritual.
important thing that you could be doing, though, you are doing, which is shooting video every time and being present on YouTube, right? Like discoverability is the number one problem for anybody that's trying to start a podcast, and there is no meaningful discovery mechanism in any audio focused app. But everybody is discovering clips on YouTube, but those are video clips, and that means that a YouTube version, sorry, clips on social. And then YouTube has an algorithm that will just serve stuff up. And so you always have at least the chance of getting served up to a new audience
And
member
we have
on
been the
YouTube.
beneficiary of that. I will tell you that. But what it makes me think now is there is another tier of thinking, strategy, planning, as you do, and you know inherently, and this is what you're building. But I'm now like looking around, I'm like, we're on video. You're seeing my home office. Like, we need to spruce up our sets. We need more creative involved in making our, and I'm saying this again, half jokingly about us as an
I was
example,
going to say
but
authenticity is extremely important, and there's a balance there. But
my badges
I
from
hear you.
events is the background. Like that is me.
Well, the
But
funny thing that we were talking about events, we were talking about possible, and we were talking about can, and I know that the origins of snarketing, the original notion, right, was to do this at events, and I would say that was probably. It's probably good that you didn't do that initially because it's a hard way to scale and to really generate an archival content library, which you guys have, which is amazing. I would say though, like maybe now at this point in your growth cycle is the time to like circle back and experiential stuff at can and possible and the like with partnerships obviously subsidizing uh
teaser alert
is now
that we
like a
can't
really
talk about
interesting
yet.
idea as I'm thinking about it for you guys.
Is this our
Well,
second
this is
sponsored break? You're pitching
Yeah, we
us
should
for.
be doing this. We should be doing this on stage
but
next month.
the question that I have based on all of this, which is you're leading us in a good direction, but what happens if and when the talent level hits a ceiling, and that you and I can have a fun conversation, and we're smart, relatively witty people, and it fits the snarketing theme, but
Yeah.
I don't have, in theory, the ability to create a production that elevates us to that next level that's required to hit that broader, more multimedia, visually friendly audience in a way that resonates. So is that going to separate the wheat from the chaff in some ways in this next phase and generation of what a creator and an influencer and a multimedia omni-channel star can be?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think the big binary is can you show up on camera? Not everybody who's good on audio can, but you guys already have answered that question decisively, right? I know that your YouTube versions of your podcast perform really well. Like that's the key binary right right now in my view. Can you make that leap? Like some people just don't do well in that situation and it falls flat.
Yeah. And I think access is part of it. You're right, Matt. But like we've already gotten offers to use equipment, so like if putting us aside,
Yeah,
I
it's not
get
about
it.
us. All right, let's turn
I
it
think there are
back to
also like AI tools that you can do to like quickly pull out like clips from the show and then distribute them on your social and then like that
that.
creates
That
like a virtuous
we
like
were early in that.
okay,
That
gotcha.
I yeah. So again, I didn't really mean to make this about us, but this is your expertise shining and helping
I was
us in a
gonna
way
say
that
no,
we're
how could
appreciative.
we not? It's a podcast.
Yeah, I
I
know.
run an audio agency.
I know. So we'll have to pay you for your time here. So send us a bill.
No,
Send it
this
to
is all
Valerie's home address,
this is
um,
all on me.
which I think is a good segue for us as we kind of transition to substance now to a little bit of speed with our lightning round. Not that it was
Okay.
binary before, but I'm making it binary now because, that's the rules. So as you think about the role that you're in and having led organizations bigger and smaller, what's the most underrated skill in a strategic or creative leadership position?
Empathy?
I like that.
I feel that.
It's so ridiculous.
Uh, a lot of agencies have moved into this role of like productizing their offerings. Do you guys think of services in the form of products, or is it really more of like a custom support type model? Or if you were going to productize, like what would be the way that you define your offering to market?
I think some stuff that we do, it's really important that it's bespoke, and that's kind of the whole point. And that's the influencer marketing lens, right? Where
Mhm.
a great degree of personal care has to go into like finding the right partnerships that are going to make sense, not just from an audience alignment standpoint, but from a tonal standpoint with brands. There are tools that you can use to empower that process, right? There's stuff like Creator IQ and lots of other great tools. There are brand safety tools in audio, like Barometer is an amazing startup that we work with. Um, but anyway, that stuff I think fundamentally needs to be bespoke in order for the value proposition to remain intact all the way through the briefing process, which is also extremely personal when done correctly. When I think about productization, I think about stuff that is repeatable and scalable. And so, for example, we're building out something, we're building out basically a proprietary inventory offering where we're going to pull together inventory that is attractively priced or in certain cases below market pricing and package it up and give our clients access to that. That when we launch it will be branded and it will be a product and it will be like, non-linearly scalable. So it varies. Tech stuff, I think you can scale, but like human stuff, you have to make sure you're paying attention to where the secret sauce is and that you're not trying to like stamp that out.
Is there a buzzword in this industry that's getting you like twitchy that you're just like, can we move away from this?
I struggle to get on board with this hand wringing about the increasing prevalence of video in the industry. I just view it as very healthy and normal. And I think it's because I come from social media. And when
Mm-hmm.
I talk to people who are, hardcore dyed in the wool audio people, they express grave concerns about existentially and philosophically what it means for what was once audio content being consumed on other platforms. And man, I just don't get it. I don't care. I literally don't care. Wherever the content is being consumed, we as marketers can always find a way to bring our brand partners right up to that touch point where the audience meets the creator. And that's it. That's what our job is. And like, we can't, all the hand wringing in the world is not going to change the YouTube number going from 31% to 55% over the next 2, 3 years. Like, it's not. So we should only be thinking about what that means and how we can lean into it.
It's funny the fear of transformation that people have. It really is. It's part of the problem, actually, I think. But anyway.
I also don't like the word transformation, but that's different. Okay, a couple just quick ones as we wrap up here because my brain is still swimming from all of the information you've already shared. But as a leader in an organization, I feel like you are adapting to a different audience. You might have a 30-second pitch in one room and a 10-second pitch in another room, depending on who you're talking to. How would you describe ARM to your parents or, I don't know, maybe the people who didn't make it out of rural Maryland? Is it different than the way you would explain it to someone, in a boardroom in New York City?
Yeah, I wouldn't use any specialized industry terminology is the most important thing,
Yeah.
right? I would just say we help brands show up in the world of podcasts and digital audio.
Okay. So then in the next,
Show up is vague enough that it encompasses basically everything we
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
yeah, it's people can interpolate their own meaning from that. And then the last question that I would have, and Valerie, feel free to add 10 more after this. But in 2 years or 5 years or somewhere in between, are there audio focused agencies, or are you now an agency who creates supporting strategies and executions for different formats?
I think there's like a really interesting pendulum that swings around specialization and generalist back and forth in our business. Like we have lots of these pendulums, right? We have an in-housing and
Mhm.
then
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you shut down your in-house team and you outsource again. Like I had clients on the creative side at laundry
Yeah.
service say they were just going to build their own creative team and do everything. And then a year later, guess what? The pendulum swung back. So I think that right now it really makes sense with regard to audio and audio first creators for the pendulum to be where it is, which is decidedly that like the executional and strategic expertise lives mainly with specialist agencies and not at large agencies. I think as the sector continues to grow, large agencies are going to figure out how to show up in that space. The way that that worked with influencer marketing was just through acquisitions, right? Like that's the obviously deal, that's the influential deal.
Mhm.
Like eventually, usually not super quick, but eventually holdcos figure out that they need to buy a capability that is too difficult to build. So I think as audio grows, there may be fewer specialist agencies because they may get acquired by other larger agencies that want to add that capability, and that could be one outcome for my agency over time as well. But right now, like
SMEs,
the
disciplines,
juice
yeah.
is in specialty because it's still a rapidly evolving part of the market.
Well, lean into it because I can tell you not only have you made us feel special, but this expertise is something that will go beyond just our audience. I have no doubt because this is a conversation that needs to be had and information that needs to be shared more broadly. And I look forward to whether watching, supporting, helping, partnering in some way, because you guys are on this rocket ship and you're at the top of that rocket ship and you're steering it, you're driving it. So keep
It's
up
very kind of you.
the atmospheric trajectory.
I feel like there's a bit of a bromance, mainly coming from Matt right now, because normally the lightning round, he asks questions in which he wants the response to be one word, and yet he allowed you to have many words. Yeah, I think he really likes talking to you.
Appreciate that. Well, the feeling is mutual amongst the three of us, I think. You guys
Thanks
are
for
so
making
good
it
at what you
awkward,
do.
Valerie.
You're so good. No, really, you are. You're so good at what you do. So you guys made it easy to have a great conversation. Thank you.
I wouldn't say that was awkward, but I don't appreciate being left out of the bromance. Then again, I'm not sure even the most advanced AI is capable of emotion, so let's just leave it at that. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Matt and Valerie, and we'll see you next time on the Snarketing Podcast. Have a great time in Cannes.